Good evening, everybody. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome Pastor Robert O'Hara with the Boiling Springs Primitive Baptist Church of Christ to lead us in our invocation.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, dear God, for this wonderful day that you have made for us to enjoy. Father, we ask you that you would be with the mayor of this city and be with the elected officials, the councilmen and councilwomen that are here today, dear God. Father, we ask you as well that you would be with our nation, dear Lord, and its leaders, dear God. Father, we ask you that you would lead, guide, and direct each one of them, Father, in the way that you'd have them go. Give them the wisdom, Lord, that they so desperately need, dear God, to make the right decisions for those in whom they represent. Father, forgive us as a nation of our many sins. And Father, we thank you for blessing us to live in the greatest nation on the face of this planet. Father, we ask you that you would forgive us of our sins individually. Father, continue to shower us with your mercy and with your grace. And God, we thank you so much for your precious Son, Lord. Father, we thank you for the sacrifice that you made for us. In Jesus' name we pray all these things. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much for being here. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, March 7th, 2016 to order. City, if you'll please call roll and make general announcements.
March 7th, 2016 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you're required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first place. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that the individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Matt Coons.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Rick Morick.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to our City Council meeting, and we've got some special guests. We're excited that are out here in our audience and have a few proclamations here in a few minutes, so we appreciate you being here. And with that, Sudi, if you'll please call the first item.
The first item this evening is approval of the meeting agenda. Agenda item number 16049.
I would like to add an executive session to discuss personnel. And Carter, do we need to add anything else on that?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay. All right. So anything anybody else has or staff? Okay, I'll open up for motion.
Make a motion to approve the meeting agenda with the addition of the executive session to discuss personnel.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second from Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. So Sudi, do we have any public comment?
Yes, sir, we have one.
Okay. The next item we have is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to our city clerk. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or city council members in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and state your name and address into the microphone for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes for remarks. Sudi, if you'd please call our first public comment.
Our first comment comes from Judge Sterling Eves.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilman, women. My name is Sterling Eves. I am running for Fulton County Superior Court. I came here to make you aware of that fact and to tell you and the great citizens of Milton that there is a nonpartisan election coming up on the 24th of May. I don't believe anybody in this group is up for re-election, but that will also make it very boring for the city of Milton, I'm afraid. I don't think there's any referendums or anything. Judges are down ballot, and if you're old enough like I am, you know what that means. For the rest of the world, that means please go to the end of the ballot and vote because the judges are there. In Fulton County this year, we have 3 judges that are retiring in Superior Court or from Superior Court. I'm running for one of those spots, and then there are other candidates for the respective other 2. To my knowledge, at this point, this is the week of qualification. Nobody is opposed that is currently sitting. So I just wanted to introduce myself, tell you that I live in the great city of Atlanta at 1030 Kentucky Avenue, and we'd love to have you come down there and bring your horses. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. Thank you very much. Okay, Sudi, is that all the public comment?
That's all, sir.
All right, we'll move on to our consent agenda real quick, and if you could please call those items.
Our first item this evening is approval of the February 8th, 2016 City Council Work Session Meeting Minutes. Agenda item number 16050. Next, approval of the February 17th, 2016 Regular City Council Meeting Minutes. Agenda item number 16051. Our third consent agenda item is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Signature Research, Inc. for the evaluation of 3 bridges at Providence Park. Agenda item number 16052. Next, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and EcoFlow, Inc. for Milton's Household Paint and Chemicals Collection event, HPCC, on March 19, 2016. Agenda item number 16053. Fifth is approval of a contract with eCivis, Inc. for a 2-year subscription to web-based grants management software. Agenda item number 16054. Approval of a construction services agreement between the City of Milton and Prime Contractors, Inc. for court renovations. Agenda item number 16055. Next, approval of a construction services agreement between the City of Milton and Blunt Construction Company for asphalt reconstruction and resurfacing. Agenda item number 16056. Our eighth and final consent agenda item this evening is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Barge Wagoner, Slinger, and Cannon, Inc. for the design of Hopewell Road at Red Road turn lanes.
Okay. I'll open up for a motion and a second on the
Mayor.
consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, Sudi, we'll move on to reports and presentations.
The first presentation this evening is a proclamation recognizing Boiling Springs Primitive Baptist Church of Christ, presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay. Tonight we're recognizing Pastor Robert O'Hara and Boiling Springs Primitive Baptist Church of Christ for establishing a food pantry outreach program which has served over 50 families in the Milton area since March of 2015. And I had talked with Pastor O'Hara and was really impressed with what they'd been doing just in the last year, and certainly there was a need and is filling a need. So we really appreciate that, and we wanted to do a proclamation to help get some awareness out there of what they're doing at Boiling Springs. So I have this proclamation, and then when I get through reading it, I'd ask you to come up and we'll present it. Proclamation recognizing Boiling Springs Primitive Baptist Church of Christ. Whereas Boiling Springs Primitive Baptist Church of Christ has been an active church in the Milton, Georgia area since 1837. And whereas Robert O'Hara has served as the pastor of this church for over 2 years, and whereas a food pantry outreach program was started by the church in March of 2015 to serve those in need in the Milton area, and whereas since its inception, the food pantry has served over 50 families in the Milton area, providing them with non-perishable food items, and whereas the Milton community supports the food pantry through generous food drives and donations, and whereas women of the church visit shut-ins living in Milton on a weekly basis and bring them food, now therefore we, the mayor and city council of the city of Milton, hereby recognize and thank Boiling Springs Primitive Baptist Church of Christ for their compassion service to those in need. And that's given under our hand and seal in the city of Milton, Georgia, this 7th day of March 2016. And again, I want to thank Pastor O'Hara and your church for just getting involved with our community and helping out. And a lot of times, some people don't know, just the fact it's not so much about the meals, but it's just the community and somebody going and checking on somebody and getting some social interaction. So it's a great cause, and we appreciate that. So if you would mind stepping forward, and the council join me, we'll make the presentation.
As the mayor was saying, about a year ago, we opened up a food pantry at our church on Birmingham Road. The address is 1200 Birmingham Road, and I would like to invite everyone to come worship with us on Sunday morning starting at 10:30. Since we done that, we have fed and helped over 50 families in the Milton area and the surrounding community. God has blessed it tremendously. We have had support from the community at large, with people bringing in canned items and donations, bringing in checks and bringing in cash. So it's a community effort, and the whole community is involved. When we first started talking about opening the food pantry in Milton, I'll never forget one comment that we got. Brother O'Hara, you live, or your church is in Milton, one of the richest cities in the United States. What are y'all thinking? And I told him, I said, well, I'm thinking that we've got some needy people even in Milton, and that has been proven. So we thank the members of Boiling Springs at Milton, and we accept this proclamation in the name of our Lord and Master Jesus Christ, and on behalf of the dear sisters and many members that work to support and help with their time with the food pantry. And we thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. City, if you'll please call the next item.
The next item is a proclamation recognizing Sunshine on a Rainy Day nonprofit. This is being presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay. I'm excited for this next proclamation. Probably, 4 or 5 months ago, I met Holly and Pete, and they told me a little bit about their nonprofit, Sunshine on a Rainy Day, and I was just very, very impressed. They go in and help children with either issues or maybe that are sick or whatever, but they come in and do makeovers on their homes, their rooms, or other needs that they have. And they had already, one of our citizens that unfortunately passed away, we did a proclamation for Mary Elizabeth Paris, I don't know, about 6 months ago or so. And they had done a makeover in her room. And then tonight we got a special guest. We got Jack here, and last Friday his room got made over like the Blackhawks. So that was pretty exciting to see that, and I think he was pretty excited, weren't you, Jack? So, anyways, but what a great cause and a mission, and these two folks have Holly and Pete have taken on. Pete's in the construction business, so he's focused his time on making things happen for special kids and really making a difference. So certainly the City of Milton, we'd love to support you guys as much as we can, and I hope everybody else does and our citizens. And we're just proud here to have you guys here tonight and to give you a proclamation. And it's special to have Jack and his family here too, so to be here with us also. So I'm going to read the proclamation, and then I'll have you guys come up. Proclamation recognizing Sunshine on a Rainy Day nonprofit. Where Sunshine on a Rainy Day is a 501c3 nonprofit based in Atlanta, Georgia, actually Roswell, that was founded in 2012 by Peter and Holly Rainey. And whereas Sunshine on a Rainy Day has the mission to serve and restore hope to children with special needs and long-term illnesses and their families by renovating homes. And where Sunshine on a Rainy Day has helped families in and around our community find a way to smile by installing wheelchair-accessible bathrooms, dream bedrooms, in-home therapy rooms, wheelchair ramps, and lifts in their homes. And whereas throughout partnerships with local companies and donors, these home makeovers are provided to families at no cost. And now, therefore, we, the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Milton, hereby recognize and thank Sunshine on a Rainy Day for all their hard work and passion for families in the City of Milton, Georgia. Given under my hand and our seal on this 7th day of March 2016. So, Jack, if you and your dad would come up, and anybody else that's here with you, along with the council, as well as Peter and Holly.
Actually, we just feel really honored to get the proclamation tonight and have local support. You can just look at Jack right here. This is why we do it. There's really not much to say because just Friday night having the fire department, Milton Fire Department, and the police and the mayor and everybody getting involved in the community and seeing them, all of them put the love and effort into it, and then seeing this kid's face, not just this kid's face, that big kid's face and the parents, the siblings, and everything. And these kids are not feeling well, and spend a lot of time in their rooms, in their houses, and stuff when they're not feeling well. So being able to give them an opportunity to escape everything and just be a kid and have fun and make it a big celebration is why we do this. So we just really appreciate it.
Thank you. Jack, you want to say anything, buddy, about your room or anything?
Okay, it's really awesome. It's better than I thought.
Thanks, man. I'll tell you what, Jack, you want to hold that one, too? We'll get a picture. Everybody can on it. Anybody else? Here? Come on, Robert. We can get some of that. Yeah. Maybe he'll take it. And just for the audience, a lot of different individuals and as well as companies will come in and help sponsor some of their. You can go to their website and see the projects they're working on, and you can go in and sponsor a part of it, or like the HVAC company can go in and do that type of work, or tile, or whatever. You can pick something where you can just donate to help out. So. Thank you very much. And good luck to you guys another week. Thank you so much for coming. All right, thanks for being here. All right, Judy, if you'll please call our next item. I've got one more proclamation.
Our next proclamation is recognizing Georgia City County Management Association's 60th anniversary. This is presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay. This is a proclamation recognizing the Georgia City County Management Association's 60th anniversary. Whereas the Georgia City County Management Association is celebrating 60 years of service to Georgia's leaders, cities, and counties, and whereas GCCMA is the recognized affiliate organization of the International City Council Management Association, or the ICMA, and whereas GCCMA, originally founded in 1956 by a small group of managers interested in professional development, has grown and expanded its membership to include Georgia city and county managers and administrators, directors of regional development centers and their principal assistants, and whereas GCCMA membership represents several state agencies in addition to representatives of the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia and the Georgia Municipal Association. And whereas GCCMA is revered as the premier association of professional local government leaders building sustainable communities to improve lives across Georgia. And whereas GCCMA's mission is to create excellence in local government by fostering innovation, collaboration, mentoring, networking, continuing education, and other professional development opportunities. And whereas GCCMA provides a variety of member services, including a coaching program and 2 educational conferences each year, which with programs emphasizing issues of special interest to Georgia managers. And whereas GCCMA, let me say it one more time, members also have access to multiple training programs on special subject matters as part of GCCMA's commitment to continuing professional development. And whereas GCCMA has assisted professional local government managers in all areas of the state of Georgia in obtaining continued education and experience through scholarship and internship programs. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Milton, hereby recognize the Georgia City County Management Association's 60th anniversary in the year of 2016 and encourage all of our government leaders to recognize GCCMA for the significant impacts the organization has made and continues to make in Georgia's communities. And that's given under our hand and the seal of the City of Milton, Georgia, on the 7th day of March, 2016. If the council would join. Do we have somebody here to present it? Stacy? Okay. All right, Carter. So you guys want to come on down?
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all for being here. Move on to our first presentation. Sudie, if you'll please call out the first presentation item.
This is consideration of ZM 1601, southeast corner of Birmingham Road and Birmingham Highway, containing 22.30 acres, currently zoned mixed use, and AG1 agricultural by Oak Hall Companies, LLC, to modify Condition 2A, to revise the site plan to delete retail buildings along Birmingham Highway and replace with townhomes. RZ 04-0116 and ZM 14-06. This is agenda item number 16058.
Okay, do I have a motion second on this first presentation item?
Mayor, I'll move to approve the reading of the first presentation of agenda item number 16-058.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Luss, second by Councilmember Kuntz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, tonight we have no items under public hearing zoning agendas or unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. Sudie, if you'll please call those items.
First item is consideration of a resolution of the Mayor and Council of Milton, Georgia, regarding the park and green space bond. This is agenda item number 16059. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mayor, members of the council, thank you. This item on your agenda is a resolution that I have in fact recommended that we adopt. The City Council has expressed an interest in possibly going out for general obligation debt, which is, of course, debt that the voters have to approve. That would be in November of this year. But to do that, there's a lot of work. I know that the council is aware of that has to go into that sort of a GO debt issuance before obviously it's simply placed on the ballot. There is basically a critical path that we have to set up the dates and kind of work backwards. There is a lot of fact-finding to do. There is a lot of community involvement to do. There's a lot of analysis to do with respect to the potential use of proceeds. And so what I recommended is just to go ahead and have the council's formal seal of approval with respect to all the work that is going to have to go into this, that we put something in writing. This does not commit the city to anything. In fact, it's filled with opportunities for discretion and flexibility. Now, what it does say is that we want staff and the city attorney to begin working sort of backwards, if you will, with November as our target date to begin doing all of those things that we would need to do to place on the November ballot a general obligation, a bond issuance for purposes of park and green space acquisition, improvements, etc. And of course, this is built fairly flexibly into the resolution, and to do all those things necessary to bring that to bear. And in addition to that, I also want to mention one other thing. The no less than amount obviously gives the council flexibility to the extent that the actual number may be more than that. The number is $25 million, no less than a $25 million GO debt issuance. And again, that's subject to voter approval. And it also declares that there would be a selection of bond counsel, and that is at my request as well. And I'm requesting that we use Roger Murray with the firm of Murray, Barnes, and Finister. That he works basically as an extension of me. He's an expert in debt issuance. I have used Mr. Murray many, many times before. The city has also used him before. And so I'm also requesting that he also be ratified and approved by the council for us to begin working with him closely with respect to this potential GO debt issuance. Mr. Murray gets paid only if the bond is successful. Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Are there any questions for City Attorney on this? Matt?
Just for clarification, the voter approval would be 50% plus one of whoever votes, right?
That's correct.
So just to make sure that was the case.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay. I think this is something that we're all excited about pursuing and moving forward. So I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution of the mayor and council of Milton, Georgia regarding a park and green space bond, agenda item number 16-059.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion from Councilmember Thurman with a second from Councilmember Morrig. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. The city, if you will please sound the next item.
Next item is consideration of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and the Trust for Public Land regarding conservation finance research. This is agenda item number 16060. Ms. Kathleen Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. The purpose of this professional services agreement is to hire a consultant, the Trust for Public Land, to perform conservation finance research for the city. This is related to the resolution that Mr. Gerard just talked about. This research will consist of conducting a feasibility research to determine funding mechanisms, including a bond, and other funding options for conservation of green space areas within Milton. In addition to the feasibility study, the consultant will conduct a professionally administered, statistically valid public opinion survey, which will test specific ballot language and level of voter support for land conservation funding, purposes for the use of funds the voters find most compelling, support for a bond issue of varying amounts, and accountability measures that may be incorporated into the ballot measure. After those tasks are complete, the consultant will then make a presentation to the city on key research findings and poll results and recommend a conservation finance strategy for the city of Milton. Then, if the city decides to move forward with the bond and ballot measure, the consultant will advise on the crafting of the ballot language using the statutory parameters, provide examples of successful ballot questions, and will consult with our bond counsel as necessary. Are there any questions?
Okay. Any questions for Kathy? Bill?
Kathy, if we are to approve this tonight, how does TPL fit in with our schedule that we've established already?
So as soon as the contracts are signed, if they're both are agreed, both parties are agreed, they will finish all of this work between 4 and 6 weeks from the time that they start. So it will correspond. It will be going on at the same time that the Planning Commission is obtaining public input for the criteria, and will be done, like I said, between 4 and 6 weeks. But I will be able to talk to them during that time, like when they're doing the polling, and I can use some of their polling survey results. Hopefully that'll be before the Planning Commission is done with their input, and I can use that in conjunction with the Planning Commission.
Good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just very quickly, the contract in front of you has a capped amount of $30,000. That is a capped amount, a hard cap, and also provides that there is a termination for convenience clause with 30 days advance notice. The city always likes to know those facts. The only difference between what was in your agenda packet and what I handed out, and by the way, if you do adopt, it will be the version I handed out, is that there is a letter that the TPL is asking for us to issue, and we did modify the contract today that provides that if in fact you approve this agreement, you are also approving the issuance of that letter. And it is attached as Exhibit E, which should be the very last piece of paper on what I passed out at your stations this evening. It's basically a request for technical advice and assistance. They just want a letter.
And this
Sorry,
is
Bill?
This is the same letter that was in the packet.
That's correct, but now the contract simply says we're authorized to issue it. That's all.
Anybody else have a question? Okay, we'll That's exciting, Kathy. Let's open up for a motion.
I make a motion to approve agenda item 16-060.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion, Councilmember Hewitt, second, Councilmember Thurman.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, I can confirm that is the packet that was handed out as opposed to what was in the agenda packet. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, for the record. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
The next item is consideration of a resolution of the mayor and council of Milton, Georgia, regarding legislative annexation, agenda item number 16061, and I do have public comment on this item.
Okay.
Mr. Cantoraro.
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to do my presentation introduction first, or?
That's probably good. Then we'll do public comment, and then we'll ask questions after that. That way, it may address some things.
Thank you. I understand. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you have in the agenda packet a resolution of the mayor and council of Milton, Georgia, regarding legislative annexation. As the city is aware, we are creatures of the General Assembly. The General Assembly can modify the contours of a city by way of the action of the General Assembly. And in fact, that has in some respects been requested here. If you look on the second page of your agenda packet on this item, you will see, should be a tax map, and you'll see a large blob of gray in the middle, which is tax parcel 12225, that is currently within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city of Milton. You will also see a road, King Circle, basically bisecting that very parcel. There has been a request by that property owner to do some things with respect to land use that are simply not allowed for by the city of Milton's code. Therefore, I believe what has occurred, and I don't pretend to have all this by firsthand knowledge, but my understanding is that property owner has now gone and petitioned Roswell to basically request that this parcel be de-annexed from the city of Milton and actually become part of the jurisdictional boundaries of Roswell. And that would require General Assembly approval. So what the city has asked me by way of their city attorney is does the city of Milton have any objection? Because the city of Roswell will not even make the request if we do. So I put together this resolution which suggests that the city of Milton has no objection, but that is only, of course, true if you believe it's true and declare that it's true by way of formal action. So I think this may be an opportunity for discussion. You have in your agenda packet a resolution that accomplishes this, but this is going to be up to the city council.
Okay. Sudi, do we have public? You say we have a public comment?
We have 3 public comments, sir. The first one comes from Harvey Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Harvey Smith. I'm the property owner at 12225 King Circle. I appreciate the opportunity to make the presentation. I mean, I've spoken to most of you all on several occasions already. It was not my original desire was just to ask for a variance regarding this 3-acre minimum lot size requirement next to an unpaved road. And I think through the latest meeting and discussion with the former city manager, Chris Lagerbloom, he called me back after the last meeting I had with the mayor and Carter Lucas that, I don't know that a variance could be granted. I'm looking for the simplest mechanism to achieve, the goal to have the option to subdivide the property from my estate. If we do that in the future one day, King Circle naturally subdivides the property. The person I bought the property from, the original owner, he conveyed, it's a right-of-way deed in 1964 to Fulton County. So you have a 60-foot by 900-foot right-of-way that was granted back then. It has been 2 separate parcels since 1964. And I've been told by various zoning attorneys that it's almost an indefensible case. I'm not a litigious person, but I'm just trying to use a common sense approach to how I can build a personal house on one side of the road or the other. And this law or this code basically makes it's almost a taking of one part of the property. You have a 1.6 acre lot or a 2.6 acre lot that you can't do anything with. And so we're just trying to remedy that in the simplest way possible. It was not my intention to ask. I think that was a suggestion that maybe de-annexation, since this is right on the border. One parcel touches the city of Roswell in two areas. The north or the east side of the property touches two other parcels. So it is a prime candidate. If that's the simplest solution, I'm for that. I'm really, if a variance would be granted, I'd be happy to do that too. I mean, so any questions you might have for me, that's really the extent of it. I'm just trying to achieve, go by way of the advice from talking to the mayor and other staff members over the last few months to try to accomplish what we're trying to here with the least amount of trouble.
Okay. All right. If there's any questions later, council can feel free to ask them. Thank you, sir. Sudi?
Our next speaker is Tom Hale.
My name is Tom Hare. My wife Kathy and I own the property that is directly behind the Mr. Smith's property.
Mr. Hare, can I, do you mind just for the record stating your address? I know you said where it is.
12180 King Circle.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
And like he said, which he knew before he bought the property, that the road went down the middle and that prohibition existed. Part of the reason we put our house in Milton is for those type of things. And Kathy did a lot of work to get that part of property into Milton from Roswell. And the last thing we want to do is have Roswell in the front of our property. We only have like 50 or 70 feet. We have, if you look on the plat, we're behind it and our driveway runs down and that's it. Okay. So it'd be not at all what we did and undo the work that we've done to get into Milton, actually. So we are opposed to it from that standpoint. The buyer knew what was going on. He knew exactly, and they came out there after they bought it and said, "Oh, we might build our house on this side, and we might build it on this side." So there's no question they knew what it was. They're just trying to change it now that they own it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if you'll call the next person.
And our final speaker is Scott Gronholm.
I'm Scott Gronholm. I have a house at 12200 King Circle. And I'm proud to say that I am, I think, the southernmost tip of the city of Milton. And Kathy was very instrumental in gerrymandering us into the city of Milton. And that was a definite desire that I wanted to be in the city of Milton. So I'm proud to be in the city of Milton. And one of the issues I see, if this property is de-annexed from Milton and annexed in the city of Roswell, that would put me as an island in the city of Roswell. So I don't think that's right. And I guess I had hoped it wouldn't come to this. I hoped they would just build one house and be happy with what they knew when they bought the house. And I was hesitant to come up here this evening because I don't want to create an adversarial relationship with a future neighbor. I would like to have a very good relationship. But on the other hand, I looked at the property, because I thought about buying the property and sort of combining it, part of it with mine, and then selling off the parcel across the street. And was told that wasn't a possibility, that it couldn't be subdivided. And so, that I was worried that a developer could come in and build two houses. And I'm worried that's what's happening here. Another concern I have, he spoke with me and said that the city of Roswell, and I guess I'd like clarification, but he said that the city of Roswell only requires, I'm thinking 1 acre on a gravel road, And that would allow this parcel to be divided into 3 different properties. And I would love to have one neighbor, but on a gravel road, I don't know if anybody lives on a gravel road here, but there is a lot of dust and what have you. We love living on a gravel road, but I also don't want any more traffic than we have to either. So, and that's one of the reasons I liked about Milton was the ruralness of the city. So, I guess my question would be, what has changed since he bought the property, and what does Roswell allow that Milton does not allow? And I guess I need clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any more public comment? Okay. I guess I'll open it back up to Ken. I want to ask a question of clarification, Ken, legally. Obviously, we got like 2 issues here. One, a de-annexation request, but it's not necessarily anything against the city of Milton, but it's because of an action that the property owner would like to take that possibly would be allowed in Roswell but not Milton.
That's right.
So what's before us tonight, I want to understand, is just a resolution whether we would approve de-annexation or not. Am I correct? It's not necessarily about the splitting of the property or whether that can be done or not.
That's right.
The decision before us is just whether we would support annexing it. As you said, I think it's legislatively would have to be done, but they would look to each city involved to, correct me if I'm wrong, but to support that.
That's right. In fact, the word I got from Roswell was that they would want to know that we did not object or were agreeable to it before they would even make the request for their delegation to sponsor. And that's all this is doing.
Okay. So I'll open up questions. Council, or any comments? Karen?
Well, I don't know if this is a question or a statement, but I spent a lot of time working with Kathy to try to get these areas into the city of Milton, many days and nights. And I'm having a hard time figuring out how this could be, how allowing this de-annexation is in the best interest of the rest of the city of Milton, and the rest of the residents that we have a fiduciary responsibility to represent. And I'm not understanding how we could vote in favor of something that I don't understand how would be in the best interest of everybody, all the other residents of Milton. I mean, that's just me personally.
Bill?
I have about 3 questions here. All we have is a tax map in front of us. I haven't seen a map that defines the political boundaries in this area, which leads to the question, if in fact this de-annexation passes, would it in fact create an island for these other properties? And we've talked about creating islands in the past. Maybe you could comment on that process, that procedure. Seems to me we've prohibited it, if not just discouraged something like that in the past.
That's right. And typically where you see the discussion of these islands is in the context of a city annexing and leaving unincorporated islands. It just affects things like service delivery, et cetera. However, whether it's good policy is up in front of you. To the extent the General Assembly wishes to leave an island of an annexed property within the middle of another annexed property, we know that from experience. The General Assembly can do that because they did it when they created Milton within the context of, I think it was a park, was it not?
Yep.
So my point simply is, council member, that there is state law that when cities annex, there are obligations with respect to things that the city can create when it annexes. The General Assembly can do as it wants to. If it wants to do this, it has every power to do this. But again, the beauty of the situation you find yourself in is that everything I've heard suggests that Roswell will not even move the ball forward on this until the city of Milton says that they're okay with it. And if the city of Milton says they're not okay with it, that they don't want to pursue it at all.
Maybe a little bit further on that point. When Milton was created, there were all there were existing islands within the area. So I guess my question is the General Assembly in favor of creating new islands?
Right. That I don't know. And that I don't know. I would like to think that it hadn't got quite this far unless there had been some discussion between Roswell and the delegation and there had been an interest in pursuing this, or they wouldn't have even come to us and asked. But I would be speculating if I said that was true.
Right. Second point is a question. Since this represents, in my opinion, a rezoning, was this advertised? Were the neighbors advised of this action or this proposed action?
Right.
And
no, the answer is no. And of course, the decision tonight would not have the effect of anything. I mean, it would simply have the effect of basically signaling to Roswell we have no concerns about this. But your point is a reasonable one, because obviously to the extent that there is in fact legislation introduced that brings us into the city of Roswell, the property will of course become subject to Roswell's zoning, whatever that may be, and of course Roswell would then have to zone it. That would be in the form of a zoning action, so there would have to be some sort of notice. And Councilmember Lusk, none of those things have occurred yet.
Okay. Carrying that a little bit further then, if this action were to proceed and this parcel became subject to the ordinance and codes of the city of Roswell, what rights would the surrounding property owners there in Milton have against a rezoning application?
Sure. They would have the right to participate in whatever formal zoning action was taken. Typically a public hearing would be my expectation. I have certainly seen citizens in jurisdictions go to other jurisdictions and discuss zonings, and those can be met with limited success. But they would have the right to at least appear and speak their mind.
Maybe the third and last one. In creating or in placing this parcel in another jurisdiction, what are the issues surrounding service on either side of this parcel? Number one, maintenance of the road through this parcel. And I see a responsibility issue there between the two different jurisdictions. And also service from fire and police as they pass from city, from Milton through Roswell and back into Milton again.
Right. So typically with respect to right-of-way, when a new jurisdiction comes and annexes on both sides of the right-of-way, the typical rule is that city basically owns the right-of-way that is now on both sides, that it is now annexed on both sides of. With respect to public safety, you see a lot of that, those sorts of concerns on the margins between two governments, and typically that's worked out either by an MOU or an intergovernmental agreement to make sure there's no lapse in service. That's obviously a big deal. We have to make sure that everybody knows who's covering what area. So that would be worked out.
Joe?
What kind of precedence does this set for other landowners on the fringe of Milton who may change ownership and then decide, the new owner decide, oh, you know what, I'd rather be part of Roswell?
You don't see it too much in the issue of land use. I mean, to the extent that, that the land use doesn't accommodate what someone wants, and so the jurisdiction gives up the property and it goes into another jurisdiction. I mean, I've not seen it that often. From the standpoint of precedent, I mean, precedent is what the council chooses to make of it. I mean, if you never want to see this again, you don't have to approve another one. I don't think but to the extent that it signals you're open to it, sure. I mean, I think you might expect to see the request again.
Yeah, because I don't like that at all. I mean, that's an erosion plan to wind up one day with one little small dot that's the city of Milton, and that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, based on the comments I just heard, what seems to be driving this is just creativity. It's just, in other words, looking for an option to a problem, and apparently, to the extent that I will go ahead and concede, I have not researched Roswell's zoning laws to know that they're different. I'm assuming they must be, or this request would not be different from the standpoint of the build-out on the gravel road. But, most jurisdictions deal with this internally.
Yeah. Well, I would be much more in favor of us working out that issue than working out the annexation issue, personally.
Okay, Bert?
Back to Bill's third and final question he asked about the road maintenance and that sort of thing. So if I heard you saying typically that gap would then go to Roswell in this case, so we have 400 or 500 feet of frontage that in theory we could, when we're maintaining that gravel road, we just pick the blade up and skip on over. And
that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I'm telling you that's what I'll.
But in paper, I mean.
Okay. Matt?
I agree with Longoria's comments as well. I mean, I'm not in favor of a de-annexation, but I think that obviously if we have a piece of property that has an extraneous circumstance, in my mind this one may, we would do better to look at that issue rather than just start eroding our own boundaries.
I want to, if I could, clarify one thing, because I don't mean to act incredulous. I mean, it's very common in the county and city context that a property owner may want to do something that cannot be done in the county and request or petition to be annexed into the city. So I want to be very clear about that. That's the whole 100% method of annexation. I'm just saying it's a little more uncommon when you see it city to city. That's my point. I wanted to clarify that.
Do we have other options we could look at? I mean, obviously not tonight. It's this.
Well, the easiest one obvious option is the fact that the regulations and prohibitions that prevent what this individual apparently wants to do on their property are your ordinance. And so to the extent the City of Milton's ordinance prevents something, the City of Milton certainly has the power to lessen it or change it. So that's the obvious answer from the standpoint of can we affect this? Can we do something different? Sure. There were no obvious answers, though. A variance didn't work, is my understanding. That was not a viable option. It would be something more in the way of a text amendment. A text amendment, even to the extent that it included some sort of language that was very, very precise with respect to precedent. For instance, perhaps a code modification where it was only applicable to parcels that had frontage in neighboring jurisdictions or something like that. I mean, there are certainly ways to modify your code that are very limited in scope.
Rick?
Yeah, I guess going back to what Karen said, I remember when we were forming the city, we spent a lot of time trying to get people convinced to actually become a part of the city of Milton. And I don't take it lightly that we want to go ahead and say, well, we'll just let people start leaving. And the concern I have, too, is we've heard some of the neighbors here. We haven't gone forward with a formal change in variance, but it looks like this is what it might lead to. And you've got other residents in Milton saying, we've lived here and we've got concerns. We don't want to see it go that way. I guess I'd like to see us try to deal with it internally versus send it over to another jurisdiction where we don't really have any say in it.
Yeah.
And I'm just unclear as to, everybody says the variance won't work. Explain why. Why will a variance not work in this particular? Why the process itself?
I think the criteria that is at play is something our code doesn't allow to be verified.
At all. The variance doesn't change the size, a lot size.
Lot size. I mean, okay. So just because the road goes through, I'm just curious. I just didn't understand that.
One more point, if I can, to Councilor Love's point, because I think I indicated that to the extent that it was placed into another jurisdiction, there'd be a zoning. Councilmember, it could very well be that if, in fact, this went to the General Assembly, the actual act that changed it from Milton to Roswell could, in fact, also go ahead and decree the zoning that would be applicable to it. I don't know if they would do it that way, but I'm just pointing that out to you. So I don't want to indicate, I don't want to get too far down the field of what new process they can do it.
Anybody else? Bill?
According to our code, minimum lot size on unpaved roads is 3 acres. what we're looking at here, I believe, is what, 4.11? 4.11. To resolve something like this, one possibility anyways, is, turn around, I'll ask the question. In that ordinance with the 3-acre minimum, with a situation here where we have the entire parcel bifurcated by a public road, would that ordinance allow the combination of two lots if they weren't contiguous? There's certainly, according to the tax records, that is one parcel.
Concur.
So it would allow, it's greater than the minimum, 3 acres, so it would allow one house on it. There's an existing structure on the smaller parcel there, and I would assume that they wouldn't renovate that and live in it. I guess the intent is to live on the other side, but restate the question, I guess, is if since the tax map shows it as one parcel and it's greater than the minimum lot size, we would allow building just a new house, apparently.
That's correct.
Long question, short answer.
Does anybody else have anything? Just to clarify again, tonight we're just looking at a resolution whether we would go along with or not, support or not de-annexation into the city of Roswell. So I know there's reasoning as we've been discussing, but that's not what we're making a decision on tonight. Also, though, to clarify, I heard some comments, from others. I think Councilmember Luss mentioned notification, all that. The applicant or the property owner, no, an applicant, mention legal action or legal precedents and a case and things like that. If let's assume this stays in Milton, but then the property owner brings something forward, a request or some kind of legal action, I'm going to assume that all that, because we do have some concerns from property owners, there would be plenty of notification, and how would that work so that if something were brought forward, that to make sure everybody was aware of what was going on.
Right, there'd be basically two scenarios. The first scenario would be if, for instance, let me just give you a hypothetical. Let's decide, or let's discuss the notion that the city council decides to modify the code to allow a greater intensity of use on the property that is allowed now. If the city council did that before there would be any opportunity to take advantage of that use, I believe that would be the nature of the zoning action. There would be notice to the affected property owners, and they can come and enjoy due process with respect to the council. If there is litigation, without getting too far down the weeds in my legal advice to you, I continue to believe that would be in the form of some process, that there would be a disappointed property owner who would be disappointed in this process, who would get denied because the process does not allow the result that he wanted. I think still there would be notice to affected property owners, and then at the end of that process, they would pursue the litigation. So under either scenario, I tend to think that there would be notice to the affected property owners nearby that they can participate and at least know what's going on.
Okay. All right, anything else? If not, I'll open up this item for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we deny the resolution of the mayor and council of Milton, Georgia regarding legislative annexation, and ask the staff to try to come up with a creative alternative. That's agenda item number 16-061.
And I guess that's legal, Ken, to direct staff to come up with an or would it be better to just
deny?
Deny.
I understand the direction, and I think to the extent extent staff does. I think that what's clear in that is that it's denying the resolution, and then I think what it's going to result in is staff coming back to council with some options.
The concern I have is if this motion is passed unanimously, if it sends the message that unanimously there's support to come up with a creative, I think as Karen said, a creative solution to that, or
I just asked staff to look for a creative solution, not.
I don't, and it's a fair point, Mr. Mayor. I understand exactly the concern you're raising. I will tell you, though, I don't think that just because a council member votes in favor of that motion, that means that they are going to signify their future intent to vote in favor of a creative solution.
okay. I just didn't want to
understand.
have one question lead to another.
Right.
So.
Is there a public portion? Can I make one rebuttal?
Ken, I'm going to ask you legal.
Well, the public comment section, unless the council wants to open it up to the entire gallery, does the council want to hear the comment?
Council, if we hear one, we need to open up to anyone that had spoke publicly on this.
The problem right now, Mr. Mayor, we've got a pending motion, and I think we have a second.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do.
I think from a parliamentary perspective, I think that the council needs to take
Right.
its vote.
There'll be plenty of time moving forward that the property owner can communicate. So I have a motion from Councilmember Thurman. Who seconded the motion? Councilmember Longoria. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, Sudi, if you'll please call our next unfinished business item.
Our next item is consideration of possible ratification of a settlement agreement between the City of Milton and T-Mobile to resolve litigation and otherwise authorize the erection of a telecommunications tower at 14495 Buffalo Road. Agenda item number 16062. Mr. Kenjor.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, bring you this evening on the open session, as is required by the Open Meetings Act, as well as just City of Milton policy, a request for ratification of a proposed settlement agreement that is candidly the product of a mediation that was mandated by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. In the case that candidly has some longevity to it, this has been the product of 3 telecommunications applications that were brought by T-Mobile some years ago. And Mr. Mayor, if you will indulge me, Mr. Kelly Hunley, who has been the attorney of record on the case on behalf of the City of Milton, has been with us for the duration of this litigation, and he is here as sort of his swan song to bring this litigation home, because this is the last of it. And so, Mr. Mayor, if Mr. Hunley can come up and present to the council, I would appreciate it. He's here. Good. Right there.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, members of Mayor and Council. As Ken said, this saga started back in 2010. It started with 3 cell tower permit applications, 2 of which were denied outright by the Mayor and Council, and 1 of which was conditionally approved. That resulted in litigation that, as Ken noted, has now been through a mediation process at the 11th Circuit. But in the course of all of this, 1 tower was abandoned by T-Mobile, and the tower that was conditionally approved for all intents and purposes, T-Mobile agreed to build it pursuant to what you all had approved back in 2010. That left 1 tower, and that's the one at 14495 Hopewell Road. The matter was fought vigorously through the district court, but the district court concluded that T-Mobile had a right to the cell tower permit that it had sought for a 150-foot tower with a 4-foot lightning rod at that location, a 50 by 50-foot equipment compound, and it was going to be your typical looking cell tower. There wasn't going to be any effort to camouflage it. It was going to be the kind of thing that really stands out, and that was one of the major reasons why the city fought so vigorously on it. In the mediation that was mandated by the 11th Circuit, we had a proposal that was presented to us after some discussion with T-Mobile. And let me preface what's going to be my recommendation to accept it with the notion that convincing a court of appeals to reverse a district court one time is a difficult proposition. Convincing the court to do it 2 times in the same case is an even more difficult proposition. If you look at the landscape of the law as it applies to the appeal, there's every good reason to believe that the 11th Circuit would simply agree with the district court that T-Mobile was entitled to its cell tower permit. The product of the mediation was the settlement agreement that you have that essentially would authorize the erection of a cell tower at that location, but it would be camouflaged as a monopine. It would not be as audacious looking, at least in the view of some, as what had originally been proposed. There is some effort at camouflaging it that mitigates to some extent the visual impact that it would have. Probably the main reason that I recommend approval of the settlement agreement is this primary reason. If you lose on appeal, you get the 150-foot tower as it was originally proposed. It will not be a monopine. Even if you win on appeal, the likelihood is still yet that at some point in the not-too-distant future you can end up with a cell tower at that location. T-Mobile, even if they were to lose the case on appeal, would undoubtedly, since they have professed an extreme need for the tower, they would be back before the city pursuing it under the current ordinance. And your current ordinance allows an even taller and larger tower at that location. Now, I don't know if that's what they would pursue, but it's certainly something that would be available. It pains me to say that this is one of those rare cases where you're having to pick between the lesser of 2 evils. In a situation where win or lose, you're likely to end up with a tower. And approving the settlement agreement tonight gives you at least some measure of control over what's actually going to go out there on site now, as opposed to hoping that in the future, if you win, they either decide they don't need it or they decide to build something other than what would be permissible under your current cell tower ordinance, which would allow a tower to 195 feet as opposed to 150 feet. So for all those reasons, I'm here recommending tonight that the mayor and council vote to approve the settlement agreement and bring this one matter to its conclusion.
I'll open up for questions. Bill, do you have questions?
Kelly,
yes.
In both cases, 150-footer and 195, I believe in the 195 would require a warning light. Is that correct?
I don't believe at 195. I believe that is the maximum height. Before then, it has to be lighted.
200 feet. Okay. So I guess what I was leading up to, would 150 feet require one also?
It does not.
Right.
Anybody else? Okay. Ken, is there anything you want to add? You know, one lawyer speaks, another one's obviously going to have a different opinion.
We could do this all night. We'll just trade off. No, I just wanted to thank, Kelly, this has been a tough case. It's been ongoing for a long time. And, of course, you all have been updated from time to time. The 11th Circuit mediation, we weren't sure exactly how that would go. And candidly, I think the end product was probably a good result. And I recommend it as well. Kelly's worked very closely with my office and put those documents by me and looked at them together, and I can recommend it as well.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Questions of staff? Now we'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 16-062.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Coots with a second from Councilmember Hewitt. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Let me just gratuitously throw in, it's been a pleasure working with you all. Through the years and through multiple council members on this matter, y'all have been very much a pleasure to work with, and I appreciate your insight and your availability and flexibility very much as this matter is proceeding.
Okay, thank you.
Evil you know, as opposed to evil you don't know.
All right, City, will you please sound the next item?
All
Our final item is consideration of a memorandum of understanding between Crown Castle NG East, Inc. and the City of Milton, Georgia, related to small cell technology. Agenda item number 16063. Mr. Cantoraro.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you very much. This next item is actually a item that has its genesis in a 2014 resolution. In fact, that resolution is in your agenda packet. It was a resolution by the City of Milton that authorized the utilization of the city's right-of-way pursuant to state law with respect to Crown Castle NG East, Inc. The state law anticipates that these entities, these telecommunication providers, do in fact have the right to petition and request, subject to some fairly narrow levels of scrutiny by the local government, to request the use of our right-of-way, and they did that back in 2014. Well, now they have approached the City of Milton, or actually to the point now of wanting to install what they're calling small cell technology improvements within and on the City of Milton right-of-way. And I believe at your stations you might see a color photograph that depicts what these sorts of installations look like. And I will tell you that presently there are 22 permits that have been tendered as part of the small cell technology approach that Crown Castle is attempting to advance. If you will look in your packet, you will actually see the very last exhibit is an exhibit that shows the general locations of where those improvements will be added along the City of Milton right-of-way. As I mentioned, some of the encroachment permits are going to be installations on existing utility poles, and some of them will be the construction of altogether new poles, as you can see in the actual right-of-way permits, right-of-way encroachment permits themselves. And again, there are 22 of them. So when we sat down with Crown Castle's council, who is here tonight, the question was, well, we already have the 2014 resolution where the City Council has already approved the ability under state law for this to occur. Is there anything else you want to do? And the answer from staff and myself was yes, we would like to do a memorandum of understanding, candidly, to bring this back in front of the council as a reminder of what we had already approved in 2014, but also just in purposes of transparency, just to put it in front of you again, so you can take a look at a map, you can see what the general locations are, you can see what the permits look like. You now have in front of you a color photograph showing what the utilities look like when they're installed. As you can see, particularly with respect to those that are already on existing infrastructure, they are fairly benign. They are not significant installations. And so we put together an MOU. Now, this memorandum of understanding, first of all, sort of ratifies what you did in 2014 and sort of reconfirms and ratifies the fact that we have this application that we have approved with respect to Crown Castle. It also, if you look on the front page on paragraph 2, it approves the permits. Now, I know that this is not the council's typical paradigm to approve these right-of-way encroachment permits. Nonetheless, that's what we're doing in this particular instance. It may be that as part of this program with Crown Castle, there may be other permits they bring. You'll never see them because they can be approved administratively. I'm simply doing this just for purposes, again, of transparency and to have something on the record where we revisited this issue again. That's all. You will also see on the second page that Crown Castle is doing what they must, which is to agree to pay all what's called due compensation that is required for use of the city's infrastructure. And due compensation means, now reading from the statute, an amount no more than 3% of the actual recurring local service revenues received by the company for its retail and end user customers. That is the amount of money that will be required to be paid to the City of Milton. Crown Castle is also agreeing to repair, maintain, and relocate these improvements, all as set forth in our ordinance and under state law. And number 7, I want to focus on this one. No further requirement or precedent for council approval for telecommunications facilities or support structures shall be established by this MOU. As I mentioned to you, I am asking we do this one the first time, but it may be that it's part of this improvement process by Crown Castle. There may be other permits, and I won't necessarily bring them to you the next time. Simply doing this just because we have not done one of these before, where they're actually going to be on top of utility poles and some new poles on right of way. And just candidly to remind you of what the 2014 resolution provided. Last thing I want to go over with respect to the language of the resolution. Milton acknowledges that the permits which are hereby approved may not be the sole permits that will be sought under the access rights in the resolution, and understands that additional permit applications may be filed in connection with the resolution, including without limitation permits for fiber connectivity and additional nodes. Counsel for Crown Castle, Ms. Ellen Smith, is here. I'm sure if you have any questions, that she can probably answer those for you. But otherwise, I'm very comfortable with this resolution, or this memorandum of understanding. I think it comports with the 2014 resolution that you otherwise have approved. It provides a lot more clarity and precision as to what you approved, and my recommendation is that the council approve.
I have a question. I don't remember how long ago it was or the name of the company, but it's probably when that resolution was passed or considered, there was another company looking at doing these. But ultimately, a contract or agreement or MOU is not, you guys didn't come to terms or whatever. I don't remember what the details were.
Yeah, that's right. There was another entity some time ago that attempted to do the same thing and made some requests of the city that I know the city manager at that time and myself could not get comfortable with. But this, the 2014 resolution, was in fact with Crown Castle NGEs, so it's the same entity. But I know, Mr. Mayor, you're thinking of another one, and I agree with you.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Certainly, we can ask Crown Castle's legal if there's any questions. Karen?
I just had one question. You mentioned that we would be getting fees for this. Do we have any idea what those fees will be?
We don't. I know what the percentage. I know it's 3% otherwise provided by statute, but I am not in a position to tell you what 3% of the revenues derive from the customers.
And how was that determined? Do we know?
State statute.
But I mean, how do you determine which customers?
Well, my expectation would be that Crown Castle is going to be the ones that are going to have to calculate the 3%.
I mean, is it 3% of the people who live in that area? 3% of the people who drive down those streets? Okay.
Yeah, major use, but Ellen, if you want to.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I'm Ellen Smith. I have the pleasure of representing Crown Castle. I can tell you that it is, as Ken said, based on state statute. It's 3%, and Crown Castle has to provide quarterly reports to the state. It's based on end user numbers. So it's based on a carrier that ultimately co-locates with Crown Castle, and I don't have an estimate for you.
So if two carriers ended up co-locating on these poles, then it would be just more revenue. So, okay.
Ellen, I have a question. Obviously, this map we've got showing potential locations, 22. Well, the poles on appearance don't look that obtrusive and whatnot, but we've put other things up like tornado sirens, things like that, and our citizens don't like either. So several of them. Is the benefit of having these small microcells or repeater towers, whatever you want to call them, is the benefit that it could keep from having another large cell tower? What's the likelihood of that?
In that area, yes, sir, it is. I mean, the small cells are not going to ever substitute entirely for what I'll call a macro or the cell tower like the one you just approved for T-Mobile. They're not a substitute, but they are for a more densely populated urban area. The small cell is a substitute and serves really a particular niche. Think baseball stadium, for example. Think interior office building for a large office building. Those are indoor data, but this is an outdoor. It's intended to serve a highly dense area.
Okay. Matt?
Are these cells In order to operate, are they requiring a contiguous effect where if, say, for example, a car ran into one of these poles and it went down, would then it affect the service for all of them? Or are they, how does that work?
That's a good question. I've been doing this for more than 15 years, but small cells are not that old. So I don't know the answer. I think off the top of my head, I mean, they
Please
are
turn around, Ellen.
intended-
Somebody save it.
Sure.
My name is Darren Forster. I'm with Crown Castle. So to answer your question, so these are, like she was stating, specifically microcells, basically.
Right.
So if one does go down, it wouldn't affect all the other areas. The only thing that where they come, like she was saying, these are coverage and capacity areas, so each one is placed for that. So it's kind of like a domino effect if we move them from where they're specifically located throughout the city. That makes sense.
Yep.
Bill?
What we see here is a microcell attached to an existing utility pole. Is there any difference between what we're seeing here in the application on one of your new poles?
No. So like so the picture that you have there, actually the one that Mr. Miller has is actually the one that will be deployed. It's a smaller box. So on the existing utility poles, sometimes, like I was stating, the coverage and capacity issue, it might be just a coverage issue where there only be one RU listed on the pole, and some of our new poles will actually have two. But actually visual, they're always on the field side, so if you're going down the road, if you do see one, you only see the one box. So they're, when they're mounted on the pole and banded to the pole, it looks like one box. They're right adjacent to each other.
But these poles are no higher than the
No, sir.
typical utility pole?
No, sir.
And one other question. We collect a fee. I can't recall the title of it.
Due compensation.
For use, utilities in our right-of-way.
Franchise fee.
Franchise fees, there you go. Do we also collect that in addition to whatever
No, it's
you
the
call it?
3% fee is
No,
it?
that's
The three-
Yes.
That's total.
That's right.
Just trying.
I'm listening. Yes.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm not hearing any other questions, so or comments. I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to approve a memorandum of understanding between Crown Castle NG East, Inc. and the City of Milton, Georgia, related to small cell technology, agenda item number 16-063.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion by Councilmember Luss, second by Councilmember Hewitt. Approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous. Okay. I think that wraps up our business items. Anyone on council have anything they want to report on before we open up staff? Bill?
Just a comment. I look forward to the day when we can see the small cell technology replace 150-foot and 190-foot towers. Right. After I'm gone.
All right, anybody else? All right, so we'll move on to staff reports. Steve?
Evening, Mayor and Council. Just real quick in opening, from a general standpoint, I just want to mention that the staff is going to embark on a little bit of a deeper dig into our strategic planning based off of the strategic planning that we did during the retreat. We're going to follow through with the vision, mission, core values, and goals that were established for us by the council, and we are going to drill down into each of the individual departments to be able to make sure that we're delivering on that. So we're going to be working on that. Actually, we've already begun working on that. We're toying with getting a little outside help on that, possibly exploring the opportunity to even work with a consultant who we all worked with in our retreat, just to help ensure alignment. So we're excited about moving forward in that direction. So that's going to be part of our work over the next coming probably six to 8 weeks. So looking forward to bringing that to fruition. And now that I am wearing two hats, it's all right. I'll roll into the police report.
Okay.
Can I stay here, or do you want me to move?
You can stay right there. Stay right there.
I'll be quick with the police report. We had our first true meeting with the Police Explorers program. We have officially 21 explorers, and I believe we have 3 or 4 more that are trying to get into the organization. If I am correct, I believe that we actually have the largest chapter in northern Georgia, which was very unexpected. They're an exciting group of kids. They're very energized. The officers are very energized as well. We're just shoring up some of the things that we need to do, and they are going to be off and running a lot with the help of the kids that are involved. So not only did they get involved, they're actually helping create the program for us, and it's exciting. We're really moving forward very quickly on that. And then from the police and also from the fire side, we had the honor to work with Sunshine and a Rainy Day in Jack's room on Monday. We went over there and helped with the demolition. The fire department appeared to be a little bit more adept at the construction piece of it, so we can destroy stuff, but we just can't build it in police. So we actually got a lot of the work done there. It was even more exciting because it was hockey themed, which of course I love to see. And though I'm not a Chicago Blackhawks fan, I do recognize their ability. So it was nice to be able to support Jack's family on that. And the reveal was incredible. He really loved the room. It was nice to be able to be involved with something like that. And that is all I have from the police. Any questions?
Questions? All right, move on to Public Works.
Good evening. A couple of quick updates for you here. Northwest Connector Road over in Crabapple. They've started their staking and alignment on that, utility coordination on that. We'll be working towards getting an official schedule, hopefully through a coordination meeting that'll occur tomorrow. The Crabapple Sidewalk Project, which is taking the sidewalks in the Crabapple area from the main intersection down to Charlotte, working on finishing up title work for the 10 driveway easements that we need to acquire out of that. So once we get that title work complete, we'll be able to start that right-of-way easement acquisition. Once that's complete, we'll be released for construction. So we're hoping to let that for construction this summer. The roundabout at Hopewell and Birmingham Road, new schedule on that. Looks like completion in September. Probably have an operational roundabout in the July-August timeframe, but utility coordination has just pushed that project out. We just kicked off the Red and Hopewell intersection improvements. That we're going to be looking at some left turn lanes there to help improve operations at that intersection right there. So we've kicked off our design on that today. The Bethany Bend Highway 9 intersection, that is with the district signal office right now. We anticipate they'll be taking care of construction for that over the summer. That goes along with the right-of-way acquisition for the main Highway 9 widening project. Looks like that'll begin this October with construction in 2019 and completion in 2021 is our current schedule on that project. So a lot of work happening over there over the next couple of years. Quick update on the CTP. We've completed our initial phase on that. They'll be coming to see you. Kimberly Horn will be coming to see you in the next couple of weeks to give you an update. But we had over 1,300 responses on our survey, so that was a really overwhelming response to that, so that was good to see. Also on the transportation forefront, the North Fulton CTP, the update to that, we are currently reviewing 4 submittals, so we'll be looking forward on getting that started over the next couple of months too. Just had the Greenway concept plan approved by GDOT. Don't know what that means other than that's our first step in looking for additional funding from the feds on that. So we're working towards That project, both in our current concept plan, our current construction plan with the trails coming down from Cambridge High School to the city limits here, and we'll be working with Alpharetta on coordinating that work, also through our T-SPLOS list that we'll be going over in a couple of weeks with you all. Deerfield Web improvements, by virtue of approval of the Blunt contract tonight, if you remember, that project came in over budget when we bid that out individually. We rolled that into the main paving contract to hopefully get some economy of scale. We saved $31,000 on that intersection improvements by doing that, and Blunt will be taking care of the work under that contract. That's it. If you have any questions.
Questions for Carter? Bill?
Carter, Crabapple, what's the status on the sidewalk from Charlotte down to Danbury? Is there anything moving on that?
As I understand it, Alpharetta is still working on potential funding of that project. We've got the design in hand. They're just looking on the funding source for that.
Anybody else? No? Thanks, Carter.
Thank you.
Parks and Rec?
Well, first of all, we're very excited. We coordinated scheduling between Boys Lacrosse and Girls Lacrosse. And so now on the weekends, we are able to play all of our scheduled lacrosse games, boys and girls, at Bell Memorial Park. So this way we're giving girls access to the field, which is what the plan we want to do all along. And it also virtually assures that unless it's dramatic, there will be no rainouts. They can continue to play on the unofficial turf. And so it's very, very exciting. And they had their first games happening this past weekend, and it was fun. Seeing 4 different fields going simultaneously, plus baseball's ramping up. Which leads us to the next point, that baseball is going to be having its opening on March 19th. And baseball numbers are very strong in our age groups 4 to 10. Our 11-12 program died. We only had 16 people sign up, other than a select team that was already pre-existing. So we returned their money, and then we assisted them finding places to play in other communities and parks around the area. Hopefully, in time that will grow, we can restart that program. The 15-year-old program is small, but it has historically been small, so they are functioning in league with other parks. You may recall we had a project at Northwestern Middle School. The project being to provide access to the girls when they practice there to be able to use regular bathrooms instead of porta potties. That project included a roll-down security grill. It is now complete. All the keys have been distributed. We met with the principal. Everyone's on board. And they officially started use of that facility tonight, where the girls practice at Northwestern. Parks and Rec Board, we had a marathon meeting at our last one that was over 4 hours, so I promise my report's not that long either. But we had a marathon, and the goal is to try and bring quite a bit to you folks for the April workshop, just to talk about issues that we see coming up. We'd like to get some guidance on. Do want to let you know that we're excited that the Parks and Rec Department is going to be working with the police in supporting an Explorers team building exercise of a softball game at Bell Park, and we're going to do some things to help coordinate that and make sure that goes smoothly. And then something that also is exciting, on the 2 weekends of spring break, when sports traditionally stops because everyone's traveling, City of Milton will be hosting the first ever cricket tournament. And they're wondering, Mayor, if you were interested in coming out for the first, I think they call it a pitch.
They're allowed to ground it anyway.
Are you serious?
No, I'm completely serious. Absolutely serious.
Cricket?
Yes, sir.
Wow. You want to do it, Joe?
There's members of the community of Milton who cricket's their sport, and we have an opportunity to serve them now. We're also going to be extending them a short-term lease to use Field 3 on Sunday mornings, which is a time that baseball doesn't use the field because traditionally when folks are at church, the folks who play cricket, that's a wonderful time for them. So we'll get additional utilization of the fields, we'll pick up some additional revenue, and we're going to be serving more people than we've been able to serve before.
Yeah, I go to England and India on a regular basis, and that's all they talk about when you go there. So it's interesting.
Right now?
Yeah.
And that's all I got. Any questions?
So I took my dog walking around Bell Memorial Park, and I was curious when that bridge may be open down at the base. It may be a public works question, but I saw that it was being worked on.
As a construction project, I'll refer to code.
Yeah.
Come on, Carter.
Can you get it to stop?
Well, it should have been open by now.
Right.
Really put him on this spot.
Probably for the fourth time I've had to say this, we hope that it will be within the next 2 weeks.
All right.
Sounds like my
But
house.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Sounds like my house.
They were physically working on it today. They were working on the trail today.
Does anybody ever have any other suggestions where Mac can walk his dog?
No, I was just curious.
Birmingham.
It's a great. I have my Fitbit. It's 2,000 steps around one time around. So 5 times around, you get your 10,000 steps. There you go.
Oh, that's
We
good.
Take care of my
have
dog.
multiple Boy Scouts working on multiple trails. In fact, actually, kind of a little bit of overlap we're going to have to deal with tomorrow. But we're starting to build out trails in Providence Part 2. And thank you also for supporting that signature research, because now we can get the trails inspected, or the bridges inspected. Hopefully move forward to get the Providence open.
Okay.
Jim, I just want to say I was driving by Bell Memorial Park coming down here today, and it was nice to see people actually running along the trail and people all playing out on the fields. Actually, is looking like a very active park.
Very active.
You got to come by on Saturday, and I'll tell you, but especially once we get to March 19th, when we've got lacrosse in full swing, we're going to have baseball in full swing. It's going to be packed.
That's great. That's what it's there for.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. All right, we've got Kathy.
Thank you. Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We've got several projects in play at the moment. Where, as you know, we're doing our 5-year update to the comp plan. Tomorrow night in this council chamber, we're hosting a community open house. Up to date, we've been working with the stakeholder committee, but now we've invited the public to come in to tell us their concerns and thoughts about the update to the new 5-year comp plan that we're developing. We have finished the draft for the RFP for the updated master plan for the downtown Milton Crabapple area, and that will be advertised based on advertising requirements. It will be posted in our legal organ on March 16th. In addition, we've held a stakeholder meeting, which was a kickoff meeting for the wayfinding signage program for the downtown Milton Crabapple area, and that next meeting will be scheduled after spring break in April. In terms of rezoning, let's see, the parcel at 745 Ebenezer Road, the applicant being Brightwater Homes, that has been deferred by the Planning Commission to their March 23rd meeting. And as a result, you will not see this application until your April 27th meeting. We have a zoning modification, which you heard the first reading tonight. You will hear this at your next meeting on March 21st, and it is a modification for the southeast corner of Birmingham Highway and Birmingham Road to request the deletion of retail buildings along Birmingham Highway. And then lastly, we have a series of text amendments that are before the Planning Commission. They are currently on hold, and they will continue to be on hold until their April meeting, where they will take action on them. And the reason for that is because they have asked that changes need to be made to Chapter 48, which is our streets and sidewalks section of our ordinance.
ordinances, and they ask that those changes be reviewed concurrently with the text amendments that deal with the enhanced rural view shed. So all of those proposed amendments will come together, and the intent is for the Planning Commission to act on them in April, and then you will see them in May at your May 16th meeting. Are there any questions?
Questions for Kathy? Thank you.
So much.
I have two things for you guys. I'm not sure if y'all heard that or knew that the Fulton County Commission approved a couple weeks ago to kind of do an overhaul in the Fulton County Economic Development Department. Before, it was really just representing the unincorporated parts of South Fulton, and now they put it together with the Development Authority of Fulton County, with Al Nash being over both the Fulton County Economic Development Department and the Development Authority of Fulton County. I don't think this will really change much on how economic development is done in North Fulton. It gives us somebody at the county level who is looking out for everybody, which is a good thing. But that's just kind of a change in how projects will be filtered down when they come through the state and then through like the Metro Chamber and things like that. It'll go through Al first. And then second, on Thursday, I'm headed to Austin for South by Southwest. And in addition to doing the things that the whole campaign is scheduled for the several days, I'm going to be meeting with the Austin Chamber of Commerce and going to visit their innovation center to kind of see what they're doing and see some best practices that they have going on down there, what we can bring back to Milton for potentially ours. That's really it. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Sarah? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything on courts? All right, anything, Steve, any other staff?
I think we're all set, Mayor.
Okay, if, as added to our agenda, I'd like to move into executive session to discuss personnel. If I could have a motion in a second. Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
motion that we reconvene.
I'll second that motion.
I'm not going to adjourn until the mayor gets in here.
Where is the assistant?
All in favor of the motion?
No,
second?
no, let's make sure that he didn't have something he needs to go over with us like we did last time.
To reconvene?
Yeah, or reconvene. We made a motion to reconvene, but not to,
We have a
Have a
second.
motion that we adjourn.
No, we haven't.
We haven't voted yet. We're waiting on you.
On our reconvene.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
It's unanimous.
Motion.
And,
to adjourn?
Steve, good job on your first meeting.
Glad I could help.
All right, do I have a motion to
So moved.
leave?
Second.
Third.
I have a motion in favor, or a motion
To adjourn.
and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.